Good evening, everybody, and it is Friday, July the 19th, and we are joined by Mr22brian22. Hello, are you there?
Hello, Andy. Hello, everyone. How are things?
Things are good, things are good. This will be the second show already today. We had a Globe Earth presentation before from Bob the Science Guy, and now we have what can only be described as a rebuttal video, I would assume, from the Flat Earth perspective regarding the Analemma. I think I've spelt it wrong in the actual round table as well, but there we go.
I suppose Crow XE was who did the original Analemma video on the Globe Earth. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is in a way, this is not really a rebuttal to him, because he just kind of showed how you would work it out on the Globe model, as opposed to proving a Globe with it. So it is not really a rebuttal to him. Really a rebuttal to him. It's just showing the Analemma. I was already looking into the Analemma before he. I had looked at it a couple of years ago as well, before his presentation. So I can't really say it's a direct rebuttal to him.
Okay, well, let's see what you've got. Let's see what you've brought to the table. I've got your presentation ready to play. So without further ado, if you want to stick yourself back on mute, and we'll get cracking.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, welcome to the presentation that I have put together for the explanation of the Analemma on the globe and the flat Earth. I will start with a quick explanation of the Analemma for those who may not know, as we don't know who will end up watching this. Most people watching this will know about the Analemma, but not everyone who watches it will. This is what's known as the Analemma. It's like a figure eight in the sky. When you do a time lapse of the sun throughout the year, the sun's position in the sky throughout the year. This is the northern part of the northern hemisphere part of the Analemma. This is the equator area, and this is the southern hemisphere part of the Analemma. Okay. So the June's solstice will be up here towards the top on the 21st of June for the northern summer. And the December solstice for the southern summer will be down here towards the bottom. Okay. Tropic of Cancer will be here. That's when the sun is going over the Tropic of Cancer. This is when the sun is going over the equator. And this is when the sun is going over the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay. And there's one more here. It's beside it slightly. Okay. This here shows towards the top as well, at the very top here, is what's known as, which I will explain shortly. This is known as aphelion. And then at the bottom, this is known as perihelion. Okay? And I will explain what that is soon. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the explanation for the globe model. First of all, a very brief explanation on how the globe gets its seasons. Now, this is a diagram that does not actually explain, that does not give a proper explanation of the globe model's version of events concerning the Analemma. But it does show an elliptical orbit, but it has the sun is in the wrong place. But it doesn't matter, because I'll just it'll allow me to explain the seasons. This line, this is the constant tilt that the globe model is what's the best word? Sorry, this is the constant tilt. This line here, this is the constant tilt of 23.5 degrees that the globe model always has. The world we're on is supposed to have a tilt, if it's a globe, of 23.5 degrees off of center axis. So here now at the solstice in June the 21st, this is when the northern side, the northern part of the globe, the northern hemisphere is pointed towards the sun. It's about 5,000 kilometers closer to the sun than the southern hemisphere. and it comes around this way to the September equinox on the 22nd, 23rd. And at this point, this was the summer for the northern hemisphere and the winter for the southern hemisphere. When it comes around to here, this is here when it's at the September equinox. It's at autumn for the northern hemisphere and summer for the southern, or sorry, spring for the southern hemisphere. Then when we come around to December 21st solstice, then we have the southern hemisphere pointed about 5,000 kilometers towards the sun, and the northern hemisphere is pointed away about 5,000 kilometers from the sun. So, and then we come around to the March equinox, and then this is the southern autumn and northern spring. So, northern summer, southern winter. Northern autumn, southern spring. Southern summer, northern winter. And northern spring, southern autumn. Okay, so that's how it works. So that's the basics. How the Analemma symbol, let's call it, in the sky is explained on the globe model. Is this constant tilt off of center axis of 23.5 degrees. If this was center axis here, where I have the pointer, this would be 23.5 degrees off of that. And it orbits, right, the globe orbits spins 360 degrees every 24 hours. And it orbits the sun in an elliptical orbit, okay? And because it's always tilted in this one direction, it's eventually what was tilted towards the sun, when it gets to over here, will be tilted away from the sun. And that's how it works, okay? And the same, and these two for the equinoxes work the same way, okay? So that's the basics of the globe models explanation for the Analemma. Okay, so now I'm going to go into a more realistic version of it. Just going to make this bigger so everyone can see it. Now, this here is the truer version of it. As you can see, the sun is not centered in this version, okay? Because the actual explanation for the Analemma on the globe model involves the Earth in the northern summer being furthest from the sun, and the Earth in the southern summer being closest to the sun. So we're supposed to be in the northern summer time on Earth. We're supposed to be 152,100,000 kilometers from the sun. In the southern summer, we're supposed to be 147,300,000 kilometers from the sun. So in the northern summer, this is when things start to unravel for the globe model. Because in the northern summer, we have a distance deficit of 4,800,000 kilometers. Okay? And so that means we're 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun in the northern hemisphere's summer than in the northern hemisphere's winter. So we're 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun in our winter in the northern hemisphere. So that doesn't make any sense, as the first and second highest temperatures ever recorded were recorded in the northern hemisphere. So you have this extra distance of 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun, but yet we're supposed to be in summer in the northern hemisphere. And to add to that, when it's the southern hemisphere's summer, then there should be a massive spike in radiation and sun-related issues, because to be that to be 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun should cause massive problems to the Earth. Where obviously first with radiation, but second with plant and animal life and human life. There should be, for that much closer to the sun, we should go through, basically that should kill us. That should really kill us, going by what the globe model says the sun is and how big it is, and how powerful it is. It's like there's no way that would not cause massive ruptures on the Earth. If we're that's heading for 5 million kilometers. It's 4,800,000. It's heading for 5 million. Well, it's not. It's 4,800,000. But it's in the ballpark. It's heading for. It's heading it's just it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can't be that much further away from the sun and have a summertime, and be that much closer to the sun and it not having a massive radiation spike and problems with the plants and fauna and everything. It can't work. It's not logical. It's not natural, and it's unbalanced. That's the main problem with the globe model's explanation. See, the globe model can explain how the sun can be in those positions in the sky, but it has to do with an offset, an unbalanced elliptical orbit of the sun, where we have to be at a distance of 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun on July the 4th, which is known as the aphelion. And then we have to be 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun on January the 3rd, which is known as perihelion. So aphelion is when we're furthest from the sun, and perihelion is when we're closest to the sun. But yet, at aphelion, we are in the northern summer, and perihelion, we are in the southern summer. Now, there is even bigger problems with this, as I'm going to point out. Not only, besides the fact that we have a summer when we're furthest from the sun in the north, and a winter when we're closest to the sun in the north, the southern hemisphere has a summer that puts them 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun than the northern hemisphere in their summer. But that should give a massive temperature spike and all kinds of problems. It should really be there. But more to the point is the Arctic and Antarctic could not be as they are if this was actually going on. If this was a reality, there's no way the Arctic and Antarctic would be as they are. As the Arctic summer temperatures range from -10 to +12 degrees. The Antarctic summer temperatures average about -30 degrees. Now, people might check online and see that there is evidence that the Antarctic has temperatures up to +10. But that is not on the Antarctic shelf. That is on the Ross dependency. That it's a low-lying land that juts out off of Antarctica towards South America. And that is not part of the ice shelf. It's connected through land, but the ice shelf is higher than that. And the ice shelf takes, I think, about 90% of Antarctica. It's just one massive ice shelf. It's just it's high elevated ice. I think this goes as deep as I read online, 1.6 kilometers and more, or something like that, of ice. So how can just working off the Arctic and Antarctic summers, the Arctic summer is -10 to +12 degrees, but it's 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun in the Arctic summer than it is in the Arctic winter. So when it's 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun, the Arctic refreezes, and it goes down to, in its winter time, -34 to -50. So when it's closer by 4,800,000 kilometers, it's -34 to -50. And when it's further from the sun, by 4,800,000 kilometers, it's -10 to +12. So that doesn't make any logical sense. There's no way that can actually work. It just can't work. It's like the further you are from a heat source, or from what's causing a heat source, then the less effect you're going to have on it. That's just the way it is. That's like saying you can stand closer to a bonfire and be colder than you will if you stood further away from a bonfire. That just can't work. It doesn't work if you go by what the sun is supposed to be on the globe, the basic globe model. Like, even though the sun itself basically heats basically has an effect on the air molecules. That's the basic knowledge on the sun, that it has an effect, like a reaction happens with the air molecules and causes high pressure and stuff like that. Like, for that to happen successfully, the closer you are to it, the more likely you are to end up with high pressure, or what they call it, like high temperatures, the closer you are to it. And that's just, that's just the way it is. You can't change that. I mean, they can change what they say the sun is and what it does, but they would have to prove that the sun, that you wouldn't get hotter if you got closer to the sun. Because according to this model here, that being closer or further away doesn't matter what temperature you get, because it's minus 10 to plus 12 degrees in the Arctic when it's 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun. And it's minus 34 to minus 50 degrees when it's 4 million in the Arctic, when it's 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun. See, what normally happens is they use the tilt, the 23.5 degree tilt, and they use that to explain to people how you have seasons. Oh, see, the north is tilted towards the sun at this time, and it's tilted away from the sun at this time. So people think, oh, that's okay. That means that, excuse me, that means that that's all sorted. But what most people in the world, because most people in the world are globe believers, because that's what you're shown when from the moment you're born, you're shown the globe and you're told through school that this is where you live and all the rest of it. But most people do not know this. They don't know about this thing. This is actually how, the only way that the globe model can explain the Analemma on a globe model. They actually have to have an offset sun. So let's go on to the Antarctic and the problems with that. The Antarctic winter temperatures is minus 49 to minus 80. Now, it can go even lower than that, but it's kind of an average, right? Now, I think in 1983, it went as far as 89.6 or something, or 0.2. So it got down that far in 1983. But the basics is like minus 49 to minus 80, right? That's the basic knowledge that you can find on it. Now, it is 4,800,000 kilometers further from the sun than when it is in its summertime. But its summertime has an average temperature on the Antarctic ice shelf of minus 30 degrees on average. So basically, a bad summer's day in the Antarctica would be a good winter's day in the Arctic. Or an average summer's day in the Antarctica would be pretty much the same as a good winter's day in the Arctic. If you think about it like that. So if the tilt is always the same, 23.5, which means that the north at aphelion, at the summer solstice, is pointed towards the sun. And it's like, for the north to be pointed to have summer, supposedly, we're supposed to be tilted towards the sun 5,000 kilometers, let's just say, thereabouts. Around 5,000, let's just say, just an estimate. And for the south to have the sun summer, it's tilted towards the sun by about 5,000 kilometers. So the thing about that is that the tilt is exactly the same. So how come there is not an even balance from north to south? There should be an even balance from north to south, but it's not there. This balance is not seen. Because this is definitely not balanced. These temperatures from summer and winter, this is not balanced. The distance deficit, that's not balanced. The only balance is the fact that there's a tilt, and most people just accept, well, it's the tilt of the Earth, and that's the reason. But most people have never seen this. They've only ever seen this. They didn't see the other part, and they certainly didn't see it with these things added to it. They've never seen this. Most people in the world never saw that. But the average sciencey person might have seen this. But there might be people out there who didn't see it. There might be globe believers who watch this and go, I didn't know that. Now, flat earth people know this. But there's probably very more likely to be globe believers that don't actually know this. So how can that be a balanced situation? It is not. And life is balanced. No matter where you believe life came from, whether you believe in the Big Bang Theory or you believe in a creator or whatever you believe, you know in the world we live in that we live in a place that has to have balance for creation and for sustained creation. And this would not give us that balance. This explains, if you're talking about a spinning globe out in space, this will explain why the sun is in those positions that it's in during the Analemma. Like, this will explain this, this time-lapse photography of the sun. This will explain this. It'll explain why that sun is there in that time of year, why the sun is here at this time of year, why the sun is here at this time of year, and so on. But it doesn't explain life. It doesn't explain creation, as in like the creation that happens on the earth. It doesn't explain balance that has to be there. Antarctica should be in its summertime because it's 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun. It should be like melted. It should be melted. There shouldn't be this big massive ice shelf that's supposed to be on the bottom of the globe. This shouldn't be there, regardless of what shape you think it is. It's like if it was a globe and it's that much closer to the sun, there is no way Antarctica would have minus 30 degrees temperatures. Everyone who lives in Australia and all these places would have to go to Antarctica for the winter or for the summer because it's the only place to be able to cool down. It would be ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Sorry, ridiculous. Close a bit dry. So this whole thing is very unbalanced. It's not natural. That's the main thing I want to put through in this presentation, is the unnatural side of it. That the numbers work out to show the Analemma, but they don't work out to show how life is possible. It just doesn't. It's not workable. As far as I'm concerned, this is just not workable. Just so people know, from aphelion to perihelion, there's a straight line distance, including the diameter of the sun, of 300,791,000 kilometers. Now that will become important in a few minutes. I just want to say that right now. Okay, I'm going to move on to that. As far as I'm concerned, is all I really need to say about the globe models Analemma explanation, as it doesn't give an explanation of it. As far as I'm concerned, it gives a mathematical. It gives an explanation of why you see the sun in these positions, but it doesn't explain how we can have life. It doesn't explain how the Arctic is as it is and melts once a year and refreezes once a year. And it doesn't explain how the Antarctic doesn't melt. It only melts on the outside of it. And it doesn't melt like minus 30 degrees in the summertime in Antarctica, on the Antarctic shelf. That's not melting. Minus 30 degrees is not melting anything. So that does not make sense, especially considering you're 4,800,000 kilometers closer to the sun. Then you would think that the Antarctic could be more like the Arctic, and the Arctic could be more like the Antarctic. Or there'd be more balance between the two, or something. You'd expect something a lot better than that. So this, as I said, this is what most people are showing. They're not showing that. That's unless you search for it. And most people who see this and accept this, accept a lot of other stuff about the globe model, and they just kind of look past that. I feel that a lot of people who are globe believers just kind of look past that. They just go, oh well, it works itself out. This kind of thing, somebody knows, some scientist knows, this kind of attitude. It's like, I'm sorry, there's no science in the world that can explain that. That can explain how that's workable to create the world that we're living in now and to keep life going from year to year. That does not explain it. That does anything but explain it. Regardless of what your beliefs are, if you're using logic and you're being honest with yourself, you know this does not explain. This does not explain the life as we have it on the earth. How that's possible. Now I'm going to go on to part 2. I have 3 parts. That was the first part. This is part 2. The EQ mount, right? You might ask, why have I got an EQ mount involved in an Analemma presentation? Because I'm going to give a very brief explanation of the EQ mount, and then I'm going to tell you exactly why it's involved. For those who don't know, a lot of people watching this will obviously know what an EQ mount is and does. For those who don't know, the EQ mount is designed to track stars and other celestial objects like the moon and the sun and things throughout the sky in the opposite rotation of the Earth. So it has four movements. There's four points on this telescope here that moves, that allows it to take in the sky at angles that other telescopes just can't do. There's a part down here. It's showing it here, but it's actually down here on the majority of these telescopes that I've seen. And you do what's known as a polar alignment with this. This here is, let's just say, the axis going through the Earth. Now, that is what's known as true north, and that's what's known as true south, basically, on the globe model. But the North Pole, the magnetic north, is actually about here. It's about 3/4 of a degree off of that. And the North Pole is directly in alignment with the pole star Polaris. So what the people with the EQ mount have to do to polar align the EQ mount is they have to align up with a lens that's down here. They have to line up Polaris 3/4 of a degree off of, three-quarters of a degree off of, you have to say that again. They have to line up their EQ mount three-quarters of a degree off of Polaris. Okay? And that, once that is aligned up, right, then it's polar aligned. Now, there's a way of doing it in the south hemisphere too. You can't see Polaris past the equator, past 1.23 degrees south. You can't, as far as I know, you can't see Polaris past that. So, because they're too far away from it. And on the globe model, on the flat Earth model, you have to go too far away from it, and it's dropped in the sky. On the globe model, you've gone over past the equator and over a curve, so you've gone past the halfway point, so you can't see it. So if you're doing it on the south with the EQ mount in the southern hemisphere, you're going to use the Southern Cross to help you find Sigma Octantis to do it, to polar align it the opposite way. But it'll still be the same thing. You're aligning this lens here. You're trying to align this lens here. Even if you're in the south, what you really want to be able to do is align that lens with the pole star, right? And you might have to go through Sigma, like this. People will believe that Sigma Octantis is the southern pole star, but there is no evidence of that. It's just that it's in the south and it can't be seen. I don't know how far north Sigma Octantis can be seen, but it's very hard to see with the naked eye anyway. But supposedly that's the southern pole star, and if you want to track the sky in the south, you would connect up your EQ mount lens with that. Okay, but the problems with all this, which I'm going to go into in a minute, is regardless of your belief of the shape of the Earth, this is a problem. I'm just going to take this down, put up my next one, and I'll show you. Now, if the EQ mount is always aligned to Polaris, once polar aligned with the axis of a globe, and will remain so unless tampered with or moved, then how does it hold this position? During the Analemma, considering Polaris changes position in the sky if you move 10 degrees south or north in the northern hemisphere. So once you align up your EQ mount with the pole star, let's just say with Polaris in the northern hemisphere, or you align it up with what you perceive to be the axis of the globe in the southern hemisphere, which is really just people aligning up with Sigma Octantis. Sigma Octantis has a lot of stars spinning around them, like the pole star, okay? But you can't see Sigma Octantis. For those who don't know that, I'm going to say that. You can't really see Sigma Octantis. It's just a central point where stars spin around. And for those who want to know, yes, there is a flat Earth explanation for that too. But besides that point, just to come back to what I'm talking about. This here, once you align it up, it stays that way. So if I polar align my EQ mount, if I had one EQ mount telescope tonight, let's just say, that will stay. If I don't tamper with it or move it or mess around with it, that will stay as it is. I can come back in 4 months' time. That'll still be aligned to Polaris. Once you align something up to Polaris on the Earth, it doesn't have to be an EQ mount telescope. It can be a pipe that you have sticking out of the ground, and you align that pipe, or something that is like a pipe that you can align up with Polaris, and you can, once you leave that there, once it's aligned with Polaris, and no one tampers that with it or messes with it, right? You can come back to that any time you want once there's a clear sky, and you will see Polaris in the exact same position in the centre of that lens or pipe or whatever. So this is no different than me going out into my back garden and erecting a pole with a pipe on it and connecting it with or making sure I'm aligning it with Polaris inside within the view of the pipe or scope, and leaving it there and no one tampering at it and messing with it, and me coming back 5 months later, 2 years later, 5 years later, once no one messes with it, that will always be pointed at Polaris, because Polaris does not move in the sky. It's always stationary. So if you have the EQ mount aligned up to Polaris through its lens here, and it's what's known as polar aligned, it's three quarters of a degree off of Polaris, then how can I travel from north to south or south to north on the northern hemisphere using a sextant on a ship or any other way I want to travel, and move 10 degrees south, let's just say, from the 40th latitude north to the 30th latitude north? And when I move that 10 degrees in a ship or whatever, and I look into my sextant, the Polaris will be 10 degrees dropped in the sky. So the closer you go to the equator, the more, like if you were 10 degrees off of the equator, Polaris would be down here. So this is probably about, with the angle it's at now, this picture, probably about, 60 degrees north latitude, something like that, 70 degrees north latitude, maybe 60 degrees north latitude. So something like that. So it's like, if you can imagine, if you pull back this EQ mount and went back to the next 10 degrees back south, then it will come down to here. 10 degrees more, it'll come down to here in your vision. 10 degrees more, it'll come down to here. So how does the EQ mount stay constantly connected to it when it's supposed to be doing this around the sun? Like, although this is a time lapse of the sun, how does it explain the Analemma? Because if the EQ mount is doing what it's doing, as it's supposed to be doing, then if we're travelling from here, let's say you polar align it here on the Ophelia on the 4th of July, right, with Polaris, and you move to here, how is it still aligned with Polaris? If it's not aligned if you go 10 degrees south or north in the northern hemisphere. Use a sextant on a ship, you move 10 degrees south in the northern hemisphere, and Polaris has dropped 10 degrees in the sky. How does it stay if you go to here? How does it stay aligned? How does it stay aligned when you get to the equinox? How does it stay aligned when you go all the way over to perihelion? Remember the distance I told you? In a straight line distance, it's 300,791,000 kilometers from, according to the globe models, explanation of the Analemma, from aphelion on July the 4th to perihelion on January the 3rd. How is that possible? I don't see how that's possible at all. To stay, not that I don't see how this is possible for a start, but I also do not see how it's possible to keep this aligned to Polaris when the Earth is moving around the Sun. When all I have to do is, how does it hold its position during the Analemma, considering Polaris changes position in the sky if you move 10 degrees south or north in the northern hemisphere? How does that stay aligned to Polaris? Does the fact that the EQ mount telescope holds its position 3/4 of a degree off Polaris, once polar aligned, not prove that the Earth is as stationary as Polaris is? Question mark, as it definitely seems that way. So my assertion is that the EQ mount absolutely proves the Earth to be stationary. And although it's normally a globe proof, it's normally a proof that people who are globe believers use to say that this proves the globe Earth. In my opinion, it doesn't prove the globe Earth model, as it doesn't prove flat and it doesn't prove a globe, as in the topography of the land it's sitting on. But it does definitely prove absolute stationary Earth. And there is no way of explaining that away, considering the Analemma explanation on the globe. 300,791,000 kilometers 6 months later. That's the straight line distance that the Earth would have moved. If you imagine the distance it would have taken in the actual ellipse, the full ellipse would be way more than that straight line distance. If you bent that around that, it'd only come to the Earth. You know what I mean? You'd be like, if you want to really go by the actual half of the ellipse, you'd be talking. I'd say at least another 100 million kilometers on top of that. So that's not explainable. So this is not workable. This thing here, not workable. Not natural, not balanced, not workable. This works absolutely fine. It works absolutely fine. It's a fantastic telescope. It's a fantastic invention. The guy who made it was an absolute genius, but it's on a stationary Earth because it proves the Earth not to move. If 100 people in the Northern Hemisphere who own mount telescopes all polar aligned with Polaris and calculated the angles, I wonder what the result would be, especially if they did not pre-assume a globe. So if 100 people, right, who might be out there, who might watch this on Granty's channel, that have EQ mount telescopes, if they maybe somehow all communicated and they all polar aligned their EQ mounts to Polaris, 3/4 of a degree off Polaris. If they all did that and took all the angles in, now it won't be pointed directly at Polaris. It'd be better if they actually did point it directly at Polaris for this. But if they just do it normally, that'll still work up to a point. But if they all did this and did not pre-assume that they're on a globe and just got all the angles together, then I think it would give us a much truer position in the sky and distance to Polaris. And it also would tell us a lot more about the shape of the Earth. Because Polaris is supposed to be 323, I think it is, light years away. Now, for those who don't know, I won't go into all the maths of it. I have the maths there. I won't go into all the maths of how this is worked out. But if Polaris is 323 light years away, some people say it's 433 to 434 light years away. There's a couple of different distances on it. But I just go with the first basic one, which is 323 light years away. Now, a light year means it's to do with the supposed speed of light through a vacuum, okay? So how long it would take the light from Polaris to get to us, or for us to get to Polaris. So if we wanted to travel to Polaris, if we go by the globe model's explanation of where Polaris is and how far away it is, it would take us 323 years traveling at a rate of 671 million miles an hour. So we'd have to travel at 671 million miles an hour for 323 years to get to Polaris, according to the globe model. Now think about that. 671 million miles an hour for 323 years non-stop just to get to Polaris. Polaris, the thing we see in the sky all the time. Now, that is fantasy, as far as I'm concerned. There is no way to ever prove that. It is crazy. It brings, for me, even sometimes, something I have a bit of an issue with. I'm not 100% on it, is the speed of light. I'm looking into the speed of light, of how true it is. I can't say it's false at the moment, but how true it is that it actually has that speed, especially through a vacuum. 671 million miles an hour is an unbelievable speed. To be 323 light years away. So if you travel 671 million miles in 1 hour, that's only 1 hour of a light year. It is mind-boggling. It's so massive. It's such a big, massive calculation that it's like so big a lot of people wouldn't even think of it. But as far as I'm concerned, that it's not true. And that's that. It's just not true. As I don't see how we could see the light from Polaris from that far away. I just don't see. I don't see how it would be possible. And on top of that, something else I want to add in: Polaris's angular size is only maybe a centimeter or something, a couple of millimeters or a centimeter in the sky. It's angular size in the sky. So regardless of what your belief is on how big Polaris is or how far away it is, it's when we look at it in the sky, there's only a very, very small angular size. So for that mount telescope to be aligned up to this, and to stay aligned up to it, for that mount telescope to be aligned up to it 3/4 of a degree off of it, and to stay that way, and for it not to change and not to move, it's mind-boggling to think that people would expect to be always aligned to that on the globe model and be still travelling around the sun in this big mad elliptical offset orbit of millions and millions of kilometres. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But anyway, that's the end of part 2, and now we'll go on to part 3. You'll have to excuse the notifications are getting up. It's just things I've subscribed on YouTube and they turn it up and I can't do anything about it. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the flat Earth. The flat Earth, how the sun works on a flat Earth, and why it absolutely fits the Analemma. It absolutely fits it like a glove. Where a glove's on your hand, whereas the globe model, in my opinion, is just a calculation to excuse itself for the Analemma time lapse in the sky that it can't explain. So I'm going to start with the northern summer and the ring. This is the Tropic of Cancer. This inner ring here, the Tropic of Cancer. The inner yellow ring. The red ring is the equator, and the outer yellow ring is the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay. So this arrow here pointing to this wording here. So the sun moves slowest and makes its smallest ring at the Tropic of Cancer in the northern summer. It is also at its highest point in the sky in accordance with the solar Analemma. Now remember that, highest point in the sky. The equator, the sun starts to speed up as it travels over the equator past the September equinox, and starts to slow down again as it passes over the equator past the March equinox every year in accordance with the solar Analemma. And now onto the Tropic of Capricorn. The sun moves fastest and makes its biggest ring at the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern summer. It is also at its lowest point in the sky in accordance with the solar Analemma. So, in accordance with the solar Analemma, which is shown down here. Now, this is not my diagram. This is just one I found online, and I just put in the writing myself. Right? I just needed a diagram. So I didn't put this map here and that. It is just a basic diagram, just for visual. It's not. This map is not perfect. I'm not saying this is the correct map or anything like that. It's just a visual. Okay. So, first of all, the Tropic of Cancer. The sun moves at its slowest rate in its smallest circle, and it is also at its highest point in the sky. So, the sun is up here at this point. Okay. Then the sun speeds up as it travels over the equator past the September equinox. So once it goes past the equinox, right, once it starts after the southern summer heads into the northern summer heads into the northern autumn, the sun starts to make a wider circle and starts to go over the equator and speed up. Okay, it starts to speed up, right, in its circle and make a wider circle, and it starts to drop in height as well. And then the sun moves fastest and makes its biggest ring at the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern summer. It is also at its lowest point in the sky in accordance with the solar Analemma. So, in the southern summer, the sun has made its biggest rings, has kept on making bigger rings, kept on speeding up, and has kept dropping its height in the sky until it is at its widest ring over the Tropic of Capricorn, It is at its lowest point in the sky, and it is moving fastest. Okay, this is at that time of year at the Tropic of Capricorn. It's here. Okay, so this is Tropic of Cancer. Around here is the equator, and down here is Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so that's when those photographs were taken. When it was going over these photographs here were taken over the Tropic of Cancer. Around here those photographs were taken over the equator, and these photographs down here were taken over the Tropic of Capricorn. So we have a sun in the northern summer that makes a small circle high in the sky and moves slow. We have a sun in the southern summer that makes a big circle, is low in the sky and moves fast. And then we have it slowing down and speeding up as it crosses over the equator. So once it's leaving this northern summer and moving towards the northern autumn, as it's making a bigger ring, it's lowering in height, and it's lowering in its altitude, and it's starting to speed up. And once it goes past the equator, it speeds up and speeds up and up until it gets to its full speed, its lowest point in the sky, and its biggest ring, which is over the Tropic of Capricorn during the southern summer. And then it starts to make a smaller ring again, starts lifting in height again until it goes up and over the equator once again, and it keeps on making a smaller ring and moving slower and getting higher in the sky till it gets back up to what would be around June the 21st. Whereas between June the 21st and July the 4th, whereas at its highest in the sky, and it's making its smallest ring in the sky, and it's moving slowest. Okay, so if anyone has ever heard this saying, and it's a saying in the northern hemisphere, not in the southern hemisphere, because I've lived in both. The low winter sun. In the northern hemisphere, we get a low winter sun in the sky in our winter, in the kind of December, January, around that time. There's a very low winter sun. The Newgrange chamber in County Meath in Ireland, an old, very old Celtic kind of like a chamber, like I don't know how to explain it, a very old Celtic temple, right, is set up in such a way where on December the 21st, which is the December solstice, the sun here, as it shows, is at its lowest in the sky. Okay, and it's set up so when the sun rises, comes out in the morning, that is showing straight into the chamber. It's the only day of the year that this happens, and it only happens at that exact time. And the sun has to be at this lowest point in the sky for it to happen. The low winter sun at its lowest for that to happen. And once a year, for a very small amount of time, that happens where the sun shines straight into the chamber and illuminates the whole chamber. All the ceiling, all the symbols on the ceiling and everything are visible. By the sun, you don't need lighting. The sun lights it up. So that's only once a year, and that's at its lowest point in the sky. So to give a better visual, this is not my visual again, but it's just a diagram of it, but it'll totally explain it visually to people. So I just get it to open up here. Now, this is the sun. The high northern summer sun protects the Arctic and properly lights the southern hemisphere. Now remember that. The low southern summer sun moves fast enough to not damage the Arctic ice shelf, only causing melting to the shoreline. The reason the sun lifts and drops in height, right? First of all, I'll talk about it's why it goes up and down. If the sun was not high in the sky in the northern summer, what would happen is the southern hemisphere would not get adequate light. And if that didn't get adequate light, it would cause all kinds of problems to the fauna and the animal life and the plant life and human life. Everything in the southern hemisphere would be in grave danger as soon as winter would come along, because you have to have sunlight. And if the sun was as low in the sky in the northern northern summer as it is in the southern summer, what would happen is, because the ring it's making around the Earth is so small over this Tropic of Cancer, and it is moving so slow, it would absolutely destroy both the northern and southern hemispheres, because the southern hemisphere wouldn't be getting enough light and sun heat and light off the sun. So what would happen is the southern hemisphere would basically start to die, because it just wouldn't be getting what it needs to create photosynthesis and the carbon cycle, all these kind of things. They'll all be affected if it's not getting the sunlight that it needs to get. And if it's making a small ring at a slow rate over the Tropic of Cancer, which is about here, then the southern hemisphere will not be getting enough sunlight for that to happen, for those natural cycles to happen. But on top of that, the sun has to be high in the southern or in the northern summer. Not just for that reason for the southern hemisphere, but also to make sure that the waters around the Antarctic are getting enough sunlight and heat. Because if it's not getting enough heat out here, what will happen is, because of the cold of the Antarctic, it will in the winter time, it'll just start packing up the ice all around here. And basically, over the course of years, what would happen after a few years' time, all that ice would start packing in towards South America, South Africa, Australia. Over the course of years, you just have more and more ice building up, and it's not melting enough in the summer to go away. So it'll melt somewhat during the southern summer, and then it'll come back again worse again each year. And that's what would happen if the sun was not high in the sky in the northern summer, because the waters around Antarctica and the Antarctic coastline would just grow in ice. It would just grow in ice, and the marine life, whatever marine life is there, and the tides in the sea would all be affected by that. If it didn't, so everything would be affected. Rather than picking out one or two things, everything would be affected. So basically, it has to be high in the sky in the northern summer. The sun has to be to protect basically the southern hemisphere from certain doom, and stop Antarctica becoming a monster, basically. So now, why does it have to be high also for the northern hemisphere? Very good reason, very similar reasons. If it was as low in the sky in the northern summer as it is in the southern summer, and it's making a smaller circle over the Tropic of Cancer, and it is moving slower, what would happen is the heat would be phenomenal off it, because in the northern hemisphere we have such long days and short nights in our summertime, and such long nights and short days in our wintertime. And the reason for that is because of the position of the sun in the sky. In our summer, we have a sun that's high in the sky and makes small rings at a slow rate, which gives us loads of heat, but not too much, because it's not right on top of us. So loads of heat, but not too much, as I said, because the sun is not right on top of us. And it also gives us very long summer days. In the Arctic Circle, they have like 24-hour sun for a whole part of the summer. Whereas in the southern summer, the sun makes the biggest ring it makes throughout the year is over the Tropic of Capricorn, and it makes a faster circle around the Tropic of Capricorn, and it also is also very low in the sky. The reason it's low in the sky is this causes, what would happen is, if the sun was low in the sky in the northern summer, what would happen is, in a very short space of time, the Arctic would be absolutely obliterated, because it would not be able to replenish itself, because it would be so obliterated when it comes to winter time. It wouldn't be able to replenish itself, and all the animals and people, everything that live around the Arctic Circle, they could not be there anymore. It would absolutely destroy the Arctic. Right, and the Arctic and the Antarctic is the balance we have in the world, right? Those two things have to be kept in balance, okay, for the rest of the world to be as it is. Okay, you have to keep them in balance. The Arctic has to be able to, all the Arctic sheets have to be able to melt to a certain degree every year, and then replenish themselves to a certain degree every year. And that has to happen. And the Antarctic has to stay somewhat always pretty much uniform. As I said, it doesn't go above, or up on the ice shelf, it doesn't go really above minus 30 degrees on average in the summer. So whereas the Arctic does change its temperatures, as I said, the Arctic in the winter time could be minus 35. It's only be 5 degrees lower in its winter time, that kind of way. Whereas the Arctic would be in the Antarctic in the summer would be an average of minus 30 degrees. So the Antarctic is always it's always like a shoreline that's not going away. And it's not getting bigger, it's not getting smaller. It's just staying as it is. It's not melting. It melts up to a point during the southern summer, but what happens, because the sun is low in the sky, its direction of sun is not directly onto the top, it's more around the edges. So melts any ice bergs or anything else that would have picked up steam during the winter time, and it melts the outer edges of Antarctica, but it's moving fast in the sky. So what happens, or faster, let's say, than the northern summer. So what happens is that because of this high sun in the northern summer, and the low sun with the big ring in the southern summer, when it's the southern summer in the northern hemisphere, we don't get much light. We get very long nights and very short days, and the Arctic goes into total darkness. Whereas that doesn't happen in the southern summer. Or in the southern hemisphere, they get a much more uniform in the southern hemisphere, a much more uniform night and day balance than we get in the northern hemisphere, and that's important because that's important to note, because I lived in the southern hemisphere. Now, where I lived was 33 degrees south. Now, so you're talking the longest day of the year, 31st of December in Sydney, Australia. You're getting dark at the longest day of the year, maybe 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night at most. I think I remember 7:30, 8 o'clock. I lived there for a couple of years. 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I have loads of people that I'm friends with and family members that have lived there and still do live all over Australia. I have a load of people that live there, and they can all confirm this. I've talked to friends of mine and family members, and they've confirmed exactly what I said to them, that no, that what happens in the south and what happens in the north hemisphere is very, very different as far as daylight and day and night balance through the summer and the winter. In the southern hemisphere, people get kind of 2.5 hour difference between this winter and the summer in their day and night balance. Like, it would be getting dark, be dark at 5:30 in the summer, and dark at 7:30 dark at 5:30 in Sydney in the winter, and dark at 7:30 in the evening in Sydney in the summer. That kind of thing. There isn't a massive, massive difference like you have in the northern hemisphere. Now, the thing about it is that people will say that there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Now, during the summer in the southern hemisphere, there will be a lot of light in Antarctica, but there isn't going to be a 24-hour sun. There will be a lot of light due to the speed and the big ring that the sun is making, and it's low in the sky. It's low in the sky. It's making a very big ring around, and it's moving fast. So you will get a lot more light. Obviously, a lot of light in Antarctica, but you will not have a 24-hour sun. I've seen 3 videos that claim to be 24-hour suns from Antarctica. The first one was proven a couple of years ago now, 2015 or 16, and it was proven to be a mock-up. It was proven to be edited, and it wasn't the real deal. And it was shown to be, I think it was taken off of YouTube. The second one was from the actual Scott station, the American Scott station, not the New Zealand Scott station, not Scott station on the Ross Dependency, but the American Scott station at the supposed South Pole. And that's there for anyone to see, but it's always missing 10 hours of the day. So out of every 24 hours, all you're getting is 14 hours. So you never get to see the full 24-hour sun that they're supposedly having. So it gets to 14 hours into the day, and it cuts and jumps to the morning. So you never get to see those 10 hours where we don't know what's happening in those 10 hours because they never show us. And somebody in the flat earth community, and more than one person, contacted them, and their excuse was they didn't have enough bandwidth. And then their excuse was they didn't have enough hard drive space. And then there was some other excuse. But anyway, they haven't shown it to us. Now, there was another video going around that was supposed to be the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And I knew in my heart and soul this was not true before I watched the video. And when I watched the video, I spotted what was going on in the video. I reckoned myself, without knowing at the time, that this video had been taken in the northern hemisphere summer, and that it was taken up around the Arctic Circle, and that someone claimed it to be taken in Antarctica during the summer, and it was supposed a 24-hour video from Antarctica. But the problem is the place that they said they took it from, which was the Scott Station in the New Zealand run Scott Station on Ross Island on the Ross Dependency, is out on the very edge. It's not far away from southern Chile. So consequently, it was in the summer too. So they don't have all that ice and snow in that part of Antarctica in the summer, for a start. Most years they don't have all that. As I said earlier, they can have temperatures in their summer there that's up to kind of 10 degrees. So if you have temperatures that are over the zero and heading for 10 degrees at that part of Antarctica, how are you going to have a load of snow and ice in the sun? A load of snow and ice when you're like 8 degrees, 7 degrees, 5 degrees temperature above the zero. You're not going to have a load of snow and ice. That's the first thing. But secondly, the sun was very high in the sky. And I reckoned it was taken in the north. And I found out afterwards that someone else had spotted, I didn't believe it at all, and I found out afterwards that someone had spotted that it was actually an Arctic station in Greenland, in northern Greenland, I think, if I remember right, is where it was taken. So the point I'm making is, regardless of what you're told and what you hear, there should be, in today's day and age, an unbelievable amount of video evidence to support this 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Because you have people going there who are scientists, you have people going there who are civilian people who are going to the Ross Dependency area to visit the penguins and other things like that. And you have scientists going onto the Arctic shelf, and you have military people going there. There should be a load of videos out there, thousands of videos at this stage on YouTube showing the 24-hour Antarctic sun, but it's not there. But you can find loads and loads of videos of the Arctic 24-hour sun, but you can't find them for the Antarctic 24-hour sun because it's not there. It doesn't happen. Now, another big difference between the north and south hemispheres is the fact that past the 60th parallel south, there is very, very little life. There was no bastions of people. There was very little marine life. There was only penguins on the Ross Dependency area of Antarctica. There's no penguins that I know of up on the ice, way up on the ice shelf, and it's like there's some marine life, but it's very sparse. And even Captain Cook, the famous British explorer, Captain James Cook, I think it was his name, he said that he commented in his on the ship's log at the lack of vegetation and animal life and anything that was past the 60th parallel south. He just commented on how bad it was and how even hard it was to get fish from the ocean, and he said it was just horrendous. There was no life to be got past the 60th parallel south. Yet in the northern hemisphere, in the Arctic, we have people living right up to into the Arctic Circle. We have Inuit tribes living in the Arctic Circle, and then you come out from there, you have all the people of northern Canada, northern Russia, and Siberia, all these kind of places. And you come down, then you have people in middle Russia and northern Norway, and down again you have southern Russia, and you have southern Norway, northern Sweden. Then you come down southern Sweden, you have Scotland. You come down, you have Ireland, where I am. I'm in 52 degrees north latitude. I'm in southern Ireland. Like, there's people living all the way in, but in the southern hemisphere, that is not the case, because there is just no life to be had there. It's just not possible to live. Life there is just too hard. It's not possible to actually live there. So That's why the pattern of the sun on the flat Earth, it rising up and down in heights throughout the year. It's making smaller and bigger circles, and it's moving at different speeds. That is the reason why it works and fits the Analemma, and the Analemma fits it so perfectly like a glove, and it does not fit the globe model. It does not fit this. This does not fit the Analemma. You can calculate it to fit the Analemma, but this is not balanced. This is not natural. There's nothing balanced or natural about it. This is not good. This is my opinion. This is not logical. This does not make sense. But all those things that all those things I have written in there, all in red, all those things, other than that thing and this thing, what I've written here about the Arctic and Antarctic summers and winters, all that makes total sense here on this model. I don't like to call it a model, but on this explanation of the flat Earth and the sun on the flat Earth. It fits so much better than the globe Earth, explanation of the Analemma. It shows why the Analemma has the symbol, the symbol that it has. Symbol is probably not the right word, but as you can see, it's like an elongated number 8 with a shorter loop at the top and a longer loop at the bottom. You know, this fits that so much better. You can see even just looking at that it fits it so much better than the globe model's explanation for things. It makes absolute sense on this. It doesn't make sense on that. Not to me. It doesn't make any sense. And anyone with a rational mind should be taking things like this and like this into account, and looking at things like the EQ mount and how it doesn't move from its position once aligned with Polaris if you don't go at it and it's not tampered with. So how is that possible on a moving globe? Over a straight line distance of 300,791,000 kilometers from 6 months from one part to the other part of 6 months of a year. Just not possible. I want to show one last thing. I know two last things. It's been a long presentation, but I had to give it this amount of time. It's my 4th time recording it, and I just didn't. Each time I can't make it short. I have to do it the way it has to be done. Sorry. This is about the Analemma. This is from science.jrank.org. I just want to see, So I want to read this paragraph here. There's more, like the other stuff is good too, but I just want to read this. It's to do with speeds. Because on the globe Earth model, people who have listened to this presentation are going, speed of the sun, what a load of rubbish that is. But what they're forgetting is, on the globe Earth model, it's this globe that's supposed to be speeding up and slowing down. And so that causes the sun to seem like it's moving faster and slower in our sky. But on the flat Earth model, the Earth doesn't move, and it's just the sun that's moving faster and slower in our sky. So there's no need to back engineering it. The sun is what's moving faster and slower, not the Earth. So it doesn't appear to be moving faster and slower. The sun just is moving faster and slower, and it is rising higher and lower, and it is making smaller and bigger loops. It is doing all those things, and the Analemma is the absolute proof that it's doing all those things. But people believe they live on a globe. Sorry, what's it going to do? So this is what I just picked. This there was a lot of ones I could have picked when I put in the search, but this is just the first one that came up, and it's just perfect for to explain what I want to explain. However, you would also notice that at some times of the year, the sun would appear slightly further west in the sky than it did at other times, as if it were somehow gaining time on your watch. This results from the ellipticity of Earth's orbit. According to Kepler's second law of motion, planets moving in an elliptical orbit will move faster when they are closer to the sun than when they are farther away. Therefore, Earth's speed in its orbit is constantly changing, decelerating as it moves from perihelion, its closest point to the sun, to aphelion, its farthest point from the sun, and accelerating as it then falls inward toward perihelion again. So that's just explaining that in the globe belief, it's the globe that's slowing down and speeding up, and slowing down and speeding up, and it's the globe's tilt that they're saying is causing the sun to rise and fall in the sky. But the problem with all that is that does not explain it. That is the problem. It does not explain it at all. The fact that there's a deficit of 4,800,000 kilometres, that flies in the face of it. That we could be doing this. And then the EQ amount not moving its position once polar aligned. The same as someone in our back garden who has a pipe aligned on Polaris, and they never leave. They never move the pipe. They have it set in stone. And they look through it 10 years later and Polaris is still there, right where it was 10 years beforehand. The Earth is not moving. And the Earth is not a globe. If this is what people are expecting us to believe, it's happening. You know, well, I obviously don't, but they're expecting a lot of people to believe that. That does not make any sense whatsoever. But this makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at this symbol there. One last thing before we finish, the very last thing I want to show is this. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. This is photographs of the sun with a solar filter taken at aphelion and perihelion. You can see at aphelion, which is our furthest supposed distance from the sun on the globe model, it's slightly smaller in angular size than at perihelion, which is supposed to be our closest point to the sun on the globe model. But on the flat Earth model, this sun is smaller in angular size because it's higher in the sky. And this sun is bigger in angular size because it's lower in the sky. It's closer to us, and this is further away. This is closer, this is further away. And if you look at the Analemma, I'm just going to make this a bit smaller, right? You look at the Analemma, aphelion, the highest one, perihelion, the lowest one. This is a high sun, that's a low sun. This is a solar filtered photograph of this sun. This is a solar filtered photograph of this sun. And we're down here. So what is going to look bigger and look smaller? Something that's closer to you or something that's further away? What's going to look closer? What's going to look bigger? This one. What's going to look smaller? This one. So that makes a lot more sense than the globe model's explanation of it. So I'll finish the presentation there. There's more I could say. I could go on for another hour. There's other stuff I've looked at. And I've probably said a lot of things in this that is mostly my opinion and whatever. But I think that my opinion holds a lot of weight with some of the points I've made. Some of the stuff I've said is not my opinion. It's basically stuff that can't really be denied. But some of the things I've said during it is my opinion, my personal opinion. Some of it I can't directly prove right now. But I think that anyone using their logic and rational mind would have to see this makes sense. And this does not. Okay, thank you for sitting through such a long presentation. I hope it was enjoyable, and I'm sure I'll enjoy answering any questions people have on it. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you very much. Brian, are you still there? You can come off mute if you are.
Hey, Randy, how are things?
It's good. I enjoyed listening to that. I can see that you put quite a bit of effort into it, so I do appreciate that, obviously.
Thanks. It was a long presentation.
Yeah, it gave you plenty of time to have disagreements with people in the chat, which I saw going off, which was quite hilarious.
Yeah.
So
as to be expected. Sorry. Yeah.
So I'm just going to play a little bit of music, and we'll give people a chance to put some questions in the chat. So if they want to type question and then tag me in it, I'll ask you the question when we come back. So if you pop yourself on mute again, buddy, we'll play a bit of music, and then we'll be back right at it.
Okay.
We're satellites are almost in the clouds, and their feet are chained to the ground with their chains of misery. They've got a hold of me. They won't let go of me. Let go of me. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. So let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you, while you defy gravity. They can be cruel and mean and a huge pain. Our heads are in the clouds now. Don't let them make it rain. A smile can be the sun they're missing out on their rainy day. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. Don't let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you, while you defy gravity. You defy gravity. They say we aren't strong enough. We don't have what it takes. I say yeah, they're wrong enough, and we'll show them someday. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. Oh yeah, don't let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you, while you defy gravity. You defy gravity. You defy gravity. Yeah, yeah. At you, while you defy gravity.
Right, are you back there?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Right, so let's get into this. So,
Can I say
course
one
you
thing
can.
just before we get on to the questions? First of all, thanks to everyone who has sat right through that. It was a very long-winded explanation of things, and it went on a long time. If you sat through it, whether you like it or dislike it, thanks for sitting through it. Secondly, I will not filter my questions. I will answer anything to the best of my ability that is thrown at me. I won't do like our previous guest and avoid questions. I will answer anything that's thrown at me. If I don't know something, I say I don't know. If I get something wrong, I get something wrong. Some of my answers might be just my personal opinion, and I'll state that.
okay,
Okay.
very commendable, very commendable. So let's get started. So, Shed Fairy. So, I think Shed Fairy kind of sums up what quite a lot of people were actually thinking during the presentation, and mainly that was from the globe side. And I'll just quote the two words that's been said, which are utter bollocks. Okay, so that is of course.
So you want my response to that?
You can give a response if you so like.
Yeah. Well, look, it's everyone's opinion. They can say what they want about it. To say that it's utter bollocks is completely whitewashing the points that were made in it. There are things that have not been explained correctly. I mean, you can give an explanation for some of them, but it doesn't work in reality, and that's the problem. So they can say what they want about it, and they can have a problem with it, but that is not an argument. That is not, to say it's utter bollocks is not an argument.
Okay, yeah.
That is not a response to it. That's how I view it.
I agree.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to get that out.
That's just fine. There was a lot of that.
So anyway, from George Netanyuk, I still need to know how he says his surname, but what forces are responsible to cause a massive object like the sun to speed up and slow down? Has to change its momentum to do so. What causes that on the flat Earth?
Okay, I'm going to give the long answer and the short answer, if that's okay. I'll start with the long answer. And this is my opinion, okay? I don't believe that what we call the North Magnetic Pole is the North Magnetic Pole. I believe that is actually the true South Magnetic Pole. And our true North Magnetic Pole is actually Polaris, as one sits right above and one sits right below the other. And I believe that it's possible, as I said, this is my opinion, because I obviously have not been able to prove this yet, that the sun and moon both work off some kind of positive and negative charge. The sun is possibly working off a positive magnetic charge, and the moon probably off a negative or a minus magnetic charge. So the long answer is, in my opinion, it's something to do with some kind of magnetic charges. I don't have a citation or anything like that to go along with that. That's just something that is, of my opinion, something I'm looking at the moment. Now, the short answer is you'll have to ask God.
Okay, so you had a little bit of encouragement from Richard Archer, who says that he's laughing. It's sent, i.e. the Globers, into fits, dude. So, anyway, from Gleam. Gleam's always good for a good question. So, what is your personal opinion on why the sun reduces its circle? I.e., why does it stay at the same for 3 days on 21st of December and then come back?
I wouldn't be surprised. I'll answer that one as best I can. I won't be surprised if it does the same thing around the 21st of June. I believe that the sun is like, it gets to a resting point where it kind of rests, because it's after been doing a lot of work. When it gets down as low as that and makes it that big a circle, it's getting to like a resting point. The best way visual to give on that would be like, you know, when you're in a roller coaster and you're after coming down the biggest slide, well, you kind of have a resting point and then you keep on going and going through the rest of it. It's kind of a little bit like that. That's not a great explanation or a great analogy, but it's a little bit like that. The sun would rest for a couple of days at that point. If it does do that, now I don't know if it does do that. I just presume that he's telling me that it does that. I don't know. I actually presume myself personally that it did have a resting point at around the 21st of December and around the 21st of June. So that I'm going on what I presumed and what I felt was happening. And if that is the truth, then I'm not surprised. So why it would rest at that point and then start coming, making a smaller circle and moving up the way is, in my opinion, it's like it's regenerating itself slightly, like as if you were after being sprinting, and then you slow down for a stop, and then you start jogging again, or you start sprinting again up to a point of jogging, and then jogging back down to sprinting. It's kind of a little bit like that.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I probably have to make a video about that, because that's a whole other thing, and I could be talking for 10 minutes about it. So my best answer is, I believe that it's at a resting point and building momentum to start moving back up the way and making smaller circles, and it will start moving slower as I go up.
Okay. So we have a question from David Gregory. What has the Analemma got to do with the polar aligned EQ mount? The Analemma only affects the sun and planets, not the stars.
The reason I use the EQ mount in there is that if you line up an EQ mount telescope to off of Polaris. You line it up so Polaris is 3/4 of a degree off of center of it. So, or I think that's aligned 3/4 of a degree off of Polaris. I can't remember exactly but it's aligned in the direction of Polaris. And Polaris is very small angular size in the sky. It's only a couple of millimeters or a centimeter of angular size in the sky. So if you have that aligned up to Polaris, it takes a good bit. I looked online, so I just can't remember the exact way it goes. Whether that's 3/4 of a degree off of Polaris, or Polaris is 3/4 of a degree off of that for the alignment. But I looked online about 5-6 videos explaining how this is done, and this is not an easy thing to do. So it takes a bit of work. So if you're going to put out your EQ mount telescope somewhere and align it to Polaris and go through all that bother, you're not going to use it for an hour and take it in. You're going to want to be able to have it in a situation where you could use it again, if possible. And so a lot of people would have their EQ mount telescopes. They could have it aligned to Polaris constantly, if you know what I'm saying, or for a good period of time. Now, if they are aligned to Polaris today, and in 3 months' time they're still aligned to Polaris, the point I was making is the EQ mount telescope is stationary. Polaris is stationary. The EQ mount is stationary. That means the ground it's on is stationary, because there's no way we could be making that big massive offset ellipse of the sun and still be aligned to Polaris with the EQ mount telescope, considering a captain on a ship with a sextant can travel 10 degrees south or north and watch Polaris drop or rise in the sky 10 degrees. So if that amount of small distance can change Polaris's position in the sky, then the massive 300 million plus kilometer distance in straight line from the aphelion to perihelion will definitely change it.
Okay.
So my point of bringing that in was that proves the Earth to be stationary.
Okay, so we have a question from Rock Farmer. Everyone has the right to their own opinion, but not their own facts. Does Mr22 assert that science is opinion-based? Well, there is people who bring their opinions into it and assert them as real things. So I have personally come across that, where someone is stating something as a fact, but then it becomes more of an opinion when they're questioned on it. And that's the problem. It's like, so opinions is not science. No. Okay. So, question from LBB Store. Do optics play a role in the sun appearing higher and lower in the sky with distance from the observer, similar to lampposts? Or are you stating the sun actually changes height each season?
Well, I'm actually stating that the sun does actually change height, and the Analemma, the time-lapse of the Analemma proves this. The Analemma is an old symbol. This was not something that was just done with cameras. This was done a long time back. The Analemma symbol is something that has been known about in astrology and astronomy for a long, long time. I am asserting that the sun does rise and drop, and that was the point I was making about the flat Earth. That was one of the three things: the fact that it rose and dropped, the fact that it made bigger and smaller circles, and the fact that it moved slower and faster. They were the three things that allowed the explanation for the Analemma, or they are the three reasons for the Analemma being as it is in the sky on the flat Earth. So yes, it does rise and drop. If you look at the Analemma, the northern side of it, when it's at June the 21st, and around what they call aphelion, that 2-3 week period there, that's up at the very top. It's always highest in the sky, and the southern side is always lowest in the sky.
Okay, so we have a question from Gleam again, who says, do you know of Steve Torrance, Dr. Zach's modelling guy? He has put the globe data into a flat Earth, and he has shown it working with the correct figures.
So would you say that to me again? Full question.
Are you aware of a gentleman called Steve Torrance? Dr. Zach, it's his modelling guy, and he's put the data from the globe into the flat Earth, and it's showed to be working.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that the data you might take. I don't know who this man is, Steve Torrance. I think I heard his name, but I can't say for definite. I think the name sound familiar, but I can't say. A lot of names might sound familiar, so I'm not going to say I know of them, because I don't. The thing about it is, I can make an observation and take data, and I can. It will be the same if I'm looking at the sun, where the sun is, or where it's going, or what it's doing. It'll be the same regardless of what I believe the Earth is. if I believe the Earth is a massive globe or a flat plane, that won't change what the sun is doing. The sun is going to do what it's going to do. And so the data is going to be the data. I mean, the whole idea of the globe model's explanation of the Analemma that I showed earlier in the presentation, the whole idea of that is that's how that is explained on the globe model. The fact there's an offset sun and there's a deficit of 4,800,000 kilometers between aphelion and perihelion. That's how it's explained. So how it's explained on this thing you're standing on and what it's actually doing. What it's doing is the data. How it's explained from what you're standing on are two different things.
Okay, so I'm going to give a shout out to Earth is Seriously Flat, who keeps smashing the super chat. Thank you very much. In the meantime, we have a question from again Glober, so it's going to be a globe heavy comment. Globe heavy question. What is the nature of these magnetic charges? Do you realise there is no such thing? Magnetic monopoles do not exist. Have never been found and are not predicted. So that's a lot of assertion. There's a lot of assertions in that question. Yeah.
Well, he talks about magnetic monopoles. What is the how does he explain the globe? Like, I don't know if I'm getting this wrong, as in what his question is, or he didn't listen to what I was saying a few minutes ago. If Polaris is the actual south pole, or sorry, the actual north, the true north magnetic pole, and what we call north magnetic pole is actually the true south magnetic pole. That's two poles. On the globe model, there's only the north magnetic and south magnetic pole, supposed south magnetic pole. So I'm giving two magnetic poles to a flat Earth, the same way as the globe has two magnetic poles. So I think he's either I'm picking up what he's saying wrong, or he didn't hear that earlier or something. Because I'm not asserting one magnetic pole, I'm asserting two.
Okay, so we have a statement from CrowXE, who did the alternate for the globe Earth last week. So it's his statement. Long presentation, but lots of effort. Thanks to Brian, and his answers about resting point makes sense under the flat Earth. It's similar to the pendulum concept he tried for the FE Sun. So he's giving you a good pat on the back there. A question from Susan Stunger, who says, at sunset, the sun is twice as far away as it is at noon on the flat Earth. Why then does it stay the same size, just as predicted on the globe?
Well, see, this is the thing. She's saying it's twice as far away. We don't know exactly how far away it is, for a start. So we can't say it's twice as far away. It's moving away from us, yes. It does move away, and people are expecting it to change angular size, right? Now, I thought this question might come up. So first of all, I will direct her to Chris Van Matry's channel, who is a long-time surveyor, who has solar observations taken with a solar filter that is proving that the Earth, or sorry, the sun does change angular size towards throughout the day, and also he also got photographs from the American Astronomical Society, I think, that they had taken time-lapse solar filtered photographs of the sun, and it shows that there is in those photographs it shows that there is an actual size decrease, angular size decrease of the sun throughout the day. Now, I don't know for definite, but I'm just saying there is other videos online. There was one I watched, Zetetic
Astronomy.
No, not Zetetic Astronomy. Zetetism.com, I think, is the channel, and Globebuster, the Seventh Day Truth Seeker mirrored one of his videos there in the past week, showing that the sun changes angular size throughout the day, and he showed a way of doing it with cheap equipment. And then he also showed Wolfie 6020's a time-lapse video of the sun, and he showed it changing angular size in his video as well. So to say it doesn't change angular size is only going off of what you're told. You're told it doesn't change angular size, and so people go, yeah, it doesn't change because I'm told it doesn't. But there's people out there showing that it does. So you can't say it doesn't if there's proof that it does. Now, on top of that, what I will say is if you look at the Analemma, I showed a solar filtered photograph of a phelion, which is when the sun is furthest from us, and a perihelion, which is when the sun is closest to us, and it shows an angular size change there. And it's not even much; it's not a whole lot. It's only a small amount, even between those two heights. I mean, if you're looking for a concise scientific data on whether the sun changes angular size throughout the day or not, I can't give it to you because it hasn't been done yet. That actually hasn't been done by mainstream science yet.
Okay,
so I would say it does change angular size. Sorry.
So I'm going to throw in that Bogan Al-Seriad's question because he literally put a very similar question that I think you've just answered. So okay. The fact that the sun is receding in size when it leaves our personal viewing sphere tells us more than its position in the sky over the year. So I think you've sort of just, answered the same thing with that. So, right, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Why are you, so here we go, question. Why are you assuming you can move 10 degrees and keep polar aligned? You can't. If you move, you need to realign always.
That's my point. My point is that the Earth is moving a massive elliptical around the sun. So how could it stay aligned with something in the sky? How could the EQ amount stay aligned with something in the sky? If a ship moving 10 degrees north or south in the northern Atlantic Ocean will show the Polaris dropping 10 degrees or rising 10 degrees in the sky. If a ship moving 10 degrees north or south on the northern Atlantic Ocean will make Polaris move down or up, in the sky, then how can you align anything to Polaris? I just use EQ amount as that's something that's normally a proof for the globe, as they would view it as a proof for the globe. But how can the EQ amount hold Polaris in its scope and stay aligned to Polaris when we're supposed to be moving a ridiculous distance around the sun in a big offset elliptical orbit? How could you keep Polaris aligned? You couldn't. That's my point.
Question from Saucy London: is Polaris the real North Pole with polar bears and Eskimos, etc.?
Well, I don't know about polar bears and Eskimos, but my opinion is that I'm looking at it as being actually the real North magnetic pole. Because everything in the globe and flat Earth is opposite. Everything in the globe and flat Earth is like opposite. It's like the globe side says so you can't have just a one magnetic pole. You need to have a plus and a minus. Well, what about if Polaris is the plus and down here is the minus? In the North magnetic pole, as we call it, is actually the true South magnetic pole, and Polaris is the true North magnetic pole. So I don't know. I haven't been to Polaris.
Okay, shout out to David Gregory, who's a Glober. Needs sleep. We'll address things in comment tomorrow. No need to ask any more questions from me. Great show and enjoyed tonight.
Thanks, David.
From Brenda Von Assen, the change in apparent size of the sun is exactly as predicted by the globe model and not any flat Earth model.
But see, the problem with that is Brenda is assuming what size and distance the sun is on the flat Earth. We don't know what the sun is itself. We don't know what it is itself, and anyone who says they do know what it is are talking out the backside. I even watched a video about a year and a half ago, and there were 7 different astrophysicists. I don't know if that's astrophysicists, but I don't remember. There were 7 different physicists with 7 different ideas of what the sun actually was, and all the videos that was compiled for this video on these 7 physicists, were all done since 2012. So it wasn't really old stuff. So we don't really know what the sun is. So, and what is our guess for on the globe model on the distance to it? It's changed 3 different times. At the moment, it's 93 million miles away. That was from the first to the second to the third, each one of them are all assumptions. there's an assumption that we're on a globe. There's an assumption that we're in this particular position of the sky. There's an assumption that we're us and all these other supposed planets are going around the sun. And there's an assumption of the distance and size of Venus to take a triangular angle distance to the sun. So all this is assumption. We actually don't know. But the difference between our side and Brenda's side is that we accept we don't know. And whereas Brenda's side claim that they actually do know. So, but the same claim was made after the first supposed measurement of it, and it changed twice since then. So that would be my answer to that.
Okay, so I'm going to take probably 3 more questions. So we've got a question from LBB Store. How much is the observed shift from solstice to solstice allegedly due to Earth moving? Please stick the dagger in deeper, recapping the contradiction in shift we do not see in Polaris.
Let me just get that there 1 second. I'll get that exact. I know it's over 300. I think it's 300,761,000 or something like that. Is the full distance, straight line distance from aphelion to perihelion. Okay. So that's the distance we would have to move from it's definitely over 300 million from aphelion to perihelion. So I don't see how you can move that distance, and that's only a straight line. That's not around in the elliptical, but you could add an extra for 6 months of the year. You could add an extra 100 million kilometers onto that, or something. So I really don't see how everything can stay. How you can have an EQ mount aligned to Polaris and all that stuff go on, and that's only one. That's only one of our supposed movements. So.
Okay, so from George Netanuk again. An equatorial mount does not remain aligned to Polaris if changed latitude, but does so if you change longitude. Do you say does not aligned as longitude is changed? Obviously, I think he's had a drink because he can't put a proper question together right now. But essentially, he's jumping to sort of like summarise that again.
Yeah, I know. I understand what he means. I might have said latitude earlier when let me see that. Yeah, but what I meant, I did say latitude, is that if you drop down 10 degrees latitude, if you polar align your EQ amount now, let's just say at 40 degrees north latitude, and you drop down to 30 degrees north latitude, it's not going to be aligned, because if it was, if that stayed aligned 10 degrees latitude south, 10 degrees south, then why would a ship's captain with a sextant have to take, why would the Polaris drop in the sky for the ship moving 10 degrees south and not for the EQ mount moving 10 degrees south? So I think he was wondering, I might have said longitude instead of latitude or something like that. He might, if he wants to maybe refresh the question, because I could be answering the wrong question or something.
Okay, so yeah, so what we'll do, we'll wait for George to refresh his question, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should head on over to Iron Realm Media when this is wrapped up, or if you're a little bit bored of this now, head on over there right now. Iron Realm Media, search them out. They'll be live with the Adam Meakin and guests, and yeah, great show. Seriously undersubscribed, underwatched. They do brilliant presentations, dead easy to talk to. Yeah, head on over there and see what they're up to this evening. So just waiting.
Thanks, Matty.
Yeah, no worries. Just waiting for this to be. Go ahead.
Can you just say something while we're waiting for George? I appreciate you having me on your show, and I hope you'll have me back. And I won't have any more super long presentations. I'll keep them short. Just this one had to be long. And Sean Hawkins was in the chat looking to debate me, and I agreed to it. And I said to him, I think he was looking to do it straight after this, and I just can't do that straight after this. This is like 3 hours of the day taken up already. So I told him that if he wants to send you a presentation, that's in response to mine, and I'll debate him after that on your show, if you want. If that would be okay with you.
Who's that?
Sean Hawkins.
Oh, Sean Hawkins, right, okay. Well, yeah. Sean Hawkins has been in touch with me by email, so if he wants to put a presentation together that... I mean, the last time that he wanted to do a presentation debunking a flat earther, he didn't want to do a presentation. He just wanted to just jump on and do an argument with them. And I was like, no, you need to do a presentation first, and then you can get into the debate. So maybe he'll do it this time. I hope he does, because I know that he's quite a voiceover on Jose's channel. So if you're listening, get yourself a presentation done. Something that can refute this. And if you two want to butt heads, I have no problem with that. Right, it doesn't look like George is getting back. So, hang on, wait a minute, just this second. Yeah. Right, EQ mount does have to change alignments on spherical Earth. That is not denied. Does not have to change if maintain latitude and change longitude.
Well, if you stay at the same latitude, you won't have to, because you're at the same distance from the North Pole. So if you're at the same exact distance from the North Pole, you can go around the North Pole, North Magnetic Pole now. You can go around that in a circle and stay the same exact distance from it. Although the latitude is more taken off of what they call true north. But it'd still be 3/4 of a degree off of the North Magnetic Pole. So he's right. If you held latitude, you wouldn't have to. But if you drop latitude or raise latitude, then you will have to. And that was my point in the first place, is that if you can't hold Polaris in your sights by just going 10 degrees south or north on a supposed globe, then how can you hold Polaris in your sight if you're doing a massive elliptical of the sun, offset elliptical of the sun? That was my point about it.
Okie dokie. I'm just going to find the link for Iron Realm Media. I think they are around right now. Do you want to summarise with your channel, how people can find you?
My channel is not very big. I think I only had 17 subscribers before this, and I got some new ones which I'm appreciative of. I will be doing a lot more videos and hopefully more presentations on your channel, Ranty. My name is Mr22brian22. I'm a flat earther since 2015, and that's it. I don't have much else to say.
Okay, no worries. Right, so what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to put the link in the side chat for Iron Realm Media, and I'm going to wrap this up. So, guys, if you would be so kind as to click this link and head on over there. And by the way, Charlie, that question's already been answered, my friend. He's already been answered. So there we go. I've put a couple of links in the chat. That's for Iron Realm Media. I'm going to wrap this one up. If you want to pop yourself on mute for the next couple of minutes there, Brian, and
we'll do it, Auntie.
We'll round up, and thanks everyone for stopping by. Thanks Earth is Seriously Flat for the super chats, and anyone else that gave me a super chat too, so thank you very much. It is much appreciated. And we'll see you all in the next one.